Hello, everyone, and welcome to an evening chit chat video. Um, I just wanted to do a pretty chill video, so there's no microphone, there's no special lighting or anything. You're just getting the beautiful canopy of this maple tree as the sun sets and the crickets chirp in the background and the cars drive by. um, I my garden is mostly what we're here to talk about. I can do some book esque updates as well, maybe, but for now, I'm just gonna talk about the garden. So, some things that I've learned this year, and some of them are things that I know happen every year, like a loss of enthusiasm for weeding and maintaining and watering. Some of my plants have suffered because of that. And so I would say, know your limits as a gardener. And obviously, you're not going to know that until you start if you're just starting. But I used to feel like a lot of guilt and disappointment when I would lose my gardening enthusiasm through the summer, specifically in July, because it gets so hot and you're busy with work and it's just hard to find the time um, for especially weeding, because weeds grow so fast in the dead heat of the summer that it's just the worst. Anyways, let me not complain too much about weeds because that's pretty predictable part of gardening. But my garden beds have gotten pretty overgrown, and our berry patch is extremely overgrown, and our raspberry patch is overgrown. And I see a lot of people on YouTube call themselves lazy gardeners, and I look at those people and I'm like, y'all are not lazy gardeners. The amount of effort and time they put into stuff is just not what I have. I usually have a really strong motivation at the beginning of the season, and then obviously that wanes as the season progresses, and you encounter more issues like weeds, like pests, like disease, like competition, and things just not growing at the rate you expect them to grow or growing at extreme rates that you didn't expect. Um, and yeah, that just happens. And it's fun and exciting and a challenge. And all of those things can be true at the same time. You can be having so much fun and also wanting to pull your hair out, just rip it out of your head at the same time. And I think that's true just for so many things in life. But um, when you think of hobbies, you generally think they're going to be like relaxing and fulfilling, and gardening is that, but it is also not that. um, oh, and birds and squirrels and deer. So, like, herbaceous predators stealing your fruits of your labor, literally. um, but those are kind of things you generally expect or should expect when you're entering into gardening endeavors. Some things that I've learned this year, the struggles that we have had with our raspberries for the past 2 years, is that they start to flower and then the flowers will die. And we've noticed some splitting on the canes, so it's definitely some kind of a fungal issue. So it seems like the solution is going to be the more high maintenance solution would be to cut down all of the second year canes, make sure you remove all of the debris and burn it, and then you just leave like the prima canes, the first year canes, for the next season. But you risk that they have already been infected with the fungus, and the fungus is spread like when it rains and the water splashes from an infected cane onto another cane. And so we have very humid and wet weather in our spring, especially in our summer and also in our fall. So I feel like our solution is going to have to be like a clear cut. We just sacrifice a whole year of raspberries by cutting down all of the canes this season and then allowing fresh canes, cutting them all down and burning them, and then allowing fresh canes to regrow in the spring from the existing root systems. Um, I'm not 100% committed to that yet, but it feels like the least amount of effort, and I don't want to end up with a really dense raspberry patch again next year that just doesn't fruit. um, we have a couple yellow raspberry plants that don't seem to be affected. So that's interesting to note. But what are you going to do? I don't know. That's the raspberry struggles I have. The lesson I learned with my peas this year is that I absolutely cannot tell them apart in the pot on the vine. And because I had to replant, I'm not confident of where I planted them. So my advice of the lesson I've learned this year with regard to peas is do not interplant your peas. If I had have been smart, I would have planted one pea on one side of the trellis and another pea on the opposite side of the trellis. But instead, what I did was I planted both peas side by side on both sides of the trellis. And so I didn't know which peas were homesteader peas and which peas were sugar snap peas. Um, and so I ended up just shelling them all. And when you do that, you don't have a whole lot of pea volume, especially for the amount of plants that I planted. So we could like succession plant another stalk of peas, but I really just want to use that trellis for my cucumbers, of which their growth seems to be very stunted. So they have missed the bulk of the cucumber beetle, which seems to be tapering off. So that's good. By planting later in the season, you risk less damage to your plants. With the pumpkins and squashes, you can't do that because they have such a long growing season, and our growing season is so short that you have to plant them at the beginning. Um, with regards to my pumpkins and squashes, I definitely planted them, I think, too densely. I should have narrowed them down to one squash, one pumpkin per planter instead of doing two of each for a total of four. Um, but, for right now, everything is doing okay. I don't know exactly what is going on with the pumpkin. It could be pest damage. It could be a nutrient deficiency because of how many plants are in that planter. It could be earwigs. It could be, I don't know, some other kind of disease, or it could be the cucumber beetle damage, or it could just be natural dieback of the middle of the plant that's not producing fruit. I'm just gonna have to wait and find out on that. Um, Another thing I learned this year so far is lovage does not seem to be something I am meant to grow. I can't grow it from seed, and the plant that I bought isn't growing. It's not dead, but it's definitely not growing. And it could be the soil I have it planted in, it could be anything, but I just don't care to grow lovage enough to find out the reason that is just not working for me. Um, so a further lesson that I've learned this year is just plant stuff you care about. Peas are generally really easy to grow, even though I don't eat them. The other half of my household does. And so it's fun to grow things that you're going to utilize. But if you're not going to utilize it, and lovage grows ginormous if you can get it to grow. If you're not me and you can get it to grow, it grows like up to 8 feet tall. It's insanely bushy, big plant along the lines of something like comfrey that just gets big and takes up a lot of space. Um, that was one of the reasons that I wanted to plant it in the planter, was to kind of contain it. And it's really just like, people say it's like a concentrated celery, and I have tried a few of the leaves of the small plant that I have, and it does taste like you took celery, concentrated it down, and stuffed it into another plant. It's got that spicy, bitter, hot celery flavor. And so you don't really, I can't think of a way that I would really use a ton of it in other than soup. And I only make soup in like the fall and winter usually. And I'm not really that big of a fan of celery. So it's not something I need to grow. And I'm struggling to grow it. So I think I'm just going to give up. um, if it was something that I really cared about growing, I would pursue it. But I think just knowing my limits of the amount of time and effort that I want to put into my garden, and just kind of accepting that is something I'm working on. Not taking on too much. I'm definitely someone who in the spring sees everything and just wants to grow everything, and then I have to talk myself back and be like, you don't need this. This is not something you're going to use. It's not something you want to put the effort in to grow. It's just another thing you have to maintain, which is why I've shifted a lot over the last 2 years to growing perennials, a lot of currant bushes. And the currant bushes got taken out by the deer again this year, and I had to move them from where I had originally planted them the year before. So their growth kind of got stunted, and I wasn't able to maintain the area that they're uh, in the best. So the grass has grown up around them, which has somewhat protected them, but it's also made it harder to pick the berries that are actually on them. um, yeah, so I think next year I am going to do what I said I was going to do this year, which was really focus on the things that I already have and not invest in a bunch of new stuff. This year I got a couple new blueberry plants. I got a couple of different herbs to grow. I replaced a couple herbs that had failed the previous year, hoping that they'll come back the next year. I also planted 5 varieties of lettuce. Why did I do that? I don't even eat lettuce. um, I mean, the other half of my household does eat lettuce, and I do eat lettuce, but I can only eat certain varieties of lettuce. I am not able to eat lettuce without it making me physically ill for most varieties of lettuce, just because I am unable to digest it. Um, and so, of the varieties that I planted, I think next year I will grow the green rabbit's lettuce and the red version of that one, because I want it to grow fully, and I liked the texture of it and the crispness of it. And so I'm not a big salad person. If I make a salad, I will make it with cabbage. Um, Pro tip for anyone out there who's trying to eat more lettuce: cabbage is far superior to lettuce. That's a personal opinion, I guess. Not really a pro tip. It's more of a opinion based tip. But cabbage lasts so much longer, and it's got so much more crunch. And I know there are like more varieties of lettuce, but like, cabbage is just superior. I use it for anywhere I use lettuce: tacos, sandwiches, salads. It's great. Um, Lettuce goes bad so fast. It's just like, and yes, I know that you can wrap it in like paper and keep it in your fridge, and it will stay good longer. But it's just the flies are starting to come out, so I'm gonna have to wrap this up. But now that my tirade on lettuce is finished, um, I have lost, and now that my dogs have interrupted me, I've lost all train of thought on all the other things that I was going to talk about. But in general, I would say the lessons I've learned this year are keep it simple, grow things you're going to use, grow things that grow back on their own every year, and just enjoy it. If it's frustrating you and it's stressing you out more than the amount of like peace and joy and energy it's giving you back, then cut those things out. um, get yourself a low maintenance plant. Um, Herbs are like the best thing I've found. Mints, if you want to grow something outside in pots, get something in the mint family. And starting herbs from seed is a fucking nightmare in my experience. It never works. I mean, actually, I should say that's not true. I made a blanket statement there and it was inaccurate. Things like thyme, rosemary, oregano, sage. I have never been able to grow those from seed. I've had like little tiny seedlings sprout and then they die. um, do not feel like you have to grow stuff from seed. There are things you shouldn't grow from seed. Or sorry, things you should grow from seed that are like general recommendations across the board, at least that I've read in my experience. And when I have bought them as potted plants, they usually die. So things like squashes, pumpkins, cucumbers, watermelons, anything in that like fruiting vine family that grows on the ground. Um, do not handle root disruption well at all. They tend to experience a lot of transplant shock if you try to move them. So those things are generally recommended to grow from seed. In my growing zone, our growing season is very short, and so if you can't get it in the ground like right at the beginning of the season from seed, then it's just not an option, and you have to try to grow from a plant. So um, yeah, so everything comes with caveats, I guess. um, but like if you want to grow herbs and you can't get them to grow from seed, buy a potted plant. It sounds like so stupid, but I know that some people are like, oh, just grow it from seed, it's so easy. And but like sometimes germinating seeds takes so much time, like just making sure that the soil is moist or not too moist, or in the case of carrots that they're like, I don't know. This is meant to be a chill, relaxing, uh, uh kind of mid-summer garden update situation, and I'm just getting frustrated. All the frustration that I'm experiencing is coming out. Um, I'll be interested to watch this back at the end of the season and see how I feel after I get to see how, um, if I get a grape, if a grape matures, or if my squashes or pumpkins make it through and don't get killed off by an early frost. So far, I'm happy with my herb garden harvest. Um, you know, my tea/herb garden is doing really well, and that's really the main focus of most of my harvest. I guess our blueberries are also doing really well. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think this video turned out to be the kind of little chit-chatty talk situation that I was anticipating it being, but at least you can commiserate with me if you are also suffering from midsummer garden fatigue. Because I definitely am. Like having to drag our hose all the way over to our garden or walk back and forth with a watering can from the house to the garden or down to the orchard to water the pumpkins is, I just didn't have the effort for that. We had a 2 week stretch where it was just hot and humid, and like when I say hot, like east coast of Canada, think of it as being like especially hot, but our summers are very humid. When you mix humidity with heat, it's so brutal. The chickens just went to bed, sitting askance to our chicken coop, and I just watched them all go in. And so, with that, as the sun continues to set, I hope the video is reflecting how dark it's getting. And the crickets chorus gets louder. I will say goodnight to you for now and wish you all the best with your garden. If you are struggling with being discouraged or fatigued or a lack of energy, I hear you, I see you, I am you, and yeah. Thanks for joining me for this evening chat, and I will see you in whatever comes next.